It's on. That's it. Okay, I will, okay, sounds good. I took you off speakerphone, so you can tell me if you can see it. Oh, okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, bye. Okay, she can hear us? Okay, so just use her microphone.
I'll put Nadia in here so that way she can talk in my microphone. I know, she was like 12 years old. I had it on my phone.
I'll sit.
How far do you have to use it? That can be. It's locked.
Oh, it's on. That's the front door.
Yeah. I left a bottle in my car. It's probably safer than anywhere else, right?
Right? I didn't get drinking. Okay. Thanks for waiting. We had technical difficulties. We're not used to having people out and, all right. Get our president back on the phone here. Hi, so I have you back on the speakerphone, so I'm gonna turn on my microphone so you can talk through that, okay? And
Great.
you're on.
Okay, is everybody ready to go, all the board members?
We're all here.
Excellent, all right. So the board has returned from executive session, but prior to continuing the regular meeting, we do need a motion to officially adjourn the executive session. I will go ahead and make the motion that we adjourn the executive session and return to the regular session. Do we have a second?
I, Jill, second that motion.
Thank you, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is informational reports, starting with third-party evaluator, and I have an update for the board on that. I was able to consult and speak to the third-party evaluator recommended to us by our district attorney. That individual is Jennifer McLennan. So should the board approve to utilize the third-party evaluator suggested by our attorney, it would be that individual, Jennifer. Some details I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of in my discussion with Jennifer. I spoke to her because, as the board knows, much of what we have received from either parents, staff, or community members in terms of communication regarding the performance of Superintendent Glass have come to us via email. And individuals who sent those emails were requesting that those emails remain confidential between themselves and the board. Ms. McLennan has said that once an email is sent to the board cannot, we're not in a position that we can commit to having those emails remain confidential. So the plan for this evaluation to be conducted would be that we would turn over copies of all the emails that were already submitted to the board as of January 14th. They would be sent to this investigator for review and then follow-up. So, and I apologize since I'm under the weather, I'm having a little bit of difficulty speaking. The plan would be that the investigator would contact the individuals for interviews. Anyone can decline an interview, so if they essentially want to retract their statement, they can do so and not be interviewed. We, however, are not at this time calling for more statements from anyone. The statements that we have are the statements that will be utilized for the purpose of this evaluation. We do need a point of contact from the district to aid in relaying information and to help scheduling appointments for any interviews of any district employees. And then we will also need IT to provide access to the superintendent's emails. And I apologize. Does anybody on the board have any questions about this?
Yes, I do.
Wendy does.
So you're saying all the emails that we received as of January 14th for review, what is the start date? Do we have a start date, or are we just up until that time? What is the length that we need to do that?
That's a good question. For the most part, we had an increase in email communication starting, I believe it was January 7th. So at this point in time, I've pulled together all of those emails. We do want to, per my conversation with the evaluator, we do want to be fairly targeted with our point in time, only because it can quickly snowball into anything and everything, which will certainly then make her, work extend longer. At the same time, if there are, I did ask that if there are any items that we as a board that didn't come to the board as emails from other individuals, but if there are items that we as board members would like to bring to her attention for her to look into, if those can be included as well. She said yes. Again, we want to try to limit the period of time that she needs to cover, because that will allow her to be very targeted and specific with her work.
Nadia, I think that I agree with you that it's important to stay within that, that time frame, because that seemed to be when we got the most letters. But I also think it's important that any staff that resigned since July 15th that submitted a resignation letter also be included in that.
Okay.
Because
that is a good plan as well.
Right, because that's part of the issue, is that we've had staff, basically resign at the beginning of their contract, the middle of their contract, and their resignations are very descriptive as to why they've resigned. And so, that's one of the issues that we're dealing with is our loss of staff. So I think that that's important.
I agree. I think that while we have had some resignations that have been descriptive, we have had others that have not. And while it's my understanding that the employees have been offered to have an exit interview, it's possible that some individuals did not feel comfortable in performing, that piece of our process for whatever reason.
Exactly.
And I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here in terms of the dates. We decided to have another executive session in December because there were concerns raised in December. So I don't want to limit concerns just to that batch of coordinated emails that we got. I think we should go back to December 8th when we had that executive session.
Did you hear me?
I think that I did. One of the things that the evaluator mentioned to me is that, primarily we want to stick with items that were brought to the board as a whole. So I would need to go back myself and see, because I know the board as a whole started receiving a volume of communications beginning, like I said, I believe January 7th. I don't know that the board as a whole was receiving communications in a significant amount in December. But certainly if we have some that were sent to the board as a whole at that time, I'm okay with expanding into the time period of December.
I agree.
And we can certainly speak with the evaluator a little bit more about that as we get started. I just wanted to share for right now the information that I had, the recommendation that, if we want it done in a timely manner, and if we feel like we should have sufficient information from a smaller snapshot in time, then it's probably not necessary to go back to the beginning and try to boil the ocean, so to speak.
Sure.
Nadia,
So,
sorry.
yes.
Who reaches out to the emails that were sent to us? Who reaches out to them? Is that you letting them know that they may or may not be contacted, or is that the independent evaluator?
I asked her if we needed to respond to them and let individuals know that now that we're conducting an investigation/evaluation, that they will potentially be contacted. She said that we certainly can, but we are under no legal obligation to do so. Beyond, of course, now we're staying in open session, that we have emails and that we intend to turn them over, which means that the individuals who sent those emails can be contacted, and if they want to speak to the investigator, they can. If they decline to do so, then it's likely that their statement will be kept in the record but cannot be sufficiently corroborated in order to determine validity of all the facts.
Nadia, one of the concerns, and I think this is why so many email writers put in there that they wanted it to remain confidential, is because they fear the repercussions. I'm assuming that even though they're being turned over to the evaluator, that their information will still be kept confidential. Like, those letters aren't shared in public, is that correct?
They would only be shared in public to the extent that if we were to in any way go into court regarding any of these matters in association with the superintendent, then the compiled information would be discoverable evidence. But truthfully, if we were to go to court, they're sitting in our email, and we as board members could have our emails taken in as discoverable evidence.
That's correct, because as public officials, you know,
Yes.
we're not volunteers, even though we're volunteers, but we still are elected just like any other, you know, state representative, Congress, whatever. I just want to make sure that people are aware that when they email us, while we are public entities, that, you know, going through this investigation.
Yeah, we get the guaranteed confidentiality when things are emailed to us because we are public officials.
Okay.
Maybe we need to put that in our out of office.
Yeah, there may be
Yeah, our
something.
automated response that we have.
Yeah.
Right, and on the subject, but I have had experience with the evaluator under similar circumstances, and I wholeheartedly support her in this.
Thank you. Did you hear Dana?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody have any additional questions for me regarding the third-party evaluator at this time?
So who decides, is it a district office point of contact? Like, who does that?
I have two opinions on that. I feel like it should be because really it's just meant to be a point of contact who can collect for any of, for example, if we're going to go back and say we want to include all of the individuals who have resigned over the period of time since the school year started, right?
Right.
We'll need somebody who can obtain that information. I presume that when any resources left or were terminated, that they provided personal contact information to our human resources department. So if we had any follow-ups regarding like the end of their last paycheck or benefits or what have you, we would be able to reach out to them. So we'll need somebody to assist with pulling together the contact information and then relaying that over to the evaluator. Regardless of whether the central point of contact is district staff, we will still need district staff involved in pulling together that information. My two opinions are that I feel for the fact that I don't want to potentially put a district staff member in an uncomfortable position if they're the liaison for the evaluator. So I'd love to hear what the board's thoughts are.
Well, I kind of have two opinions as well. One, I want it to be an unbiased evaluation, so that's where my concern is. If it has, if the board has anything to do with it, I don't want anyone to feel that the evaluator was led by any type of opinion, good or bad, from the board. But I agree with you that it puts a district office staff in an uncomfortable position, that with information that they could be asked for, that I don't want them to feel that, they're swaying one way or another. And most of our district office staff is very new.
Yes. I don't think at this point in time we need to make a hard decision on that, and we can probably work that out in the follow-up meeting that we're going to discuss later in the meeting agenda, and include an information discussion item of who would be the point of contact at the district for the evaluator, so that we can all have some time as individual board members to kind of, think through that and come back to a follow-up meeting with some additional thoughts.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and I feel like if she's someone who has been through this before, she'll have some ideas too. So I don't think we need to come up with a decision blindly. Let's hear her thoughts and what would work best for her. What's happened in the past that's worked, that would work here, so. I'm fine waiting to finalize that until she gets here.
Okay. Any other questions at this time?
No.
Okay, then we can proceed on to action items, which the first of which is appointment of the third-party evaluator. So this action item is for the board to officially agree that we would move forward with Jennifer McLennan, who is the recommended individual from our legal counsel to conduct the investigation/evaluation. Is there any additional discussion for this item?
No. Nobody has any questions?
Okay, I will go ahead and move that we appoint Jennifer McLennan to be the third-party evaluator for Superintendent Glass at this point in time.
I second.
So,
We have a motion,
and Judy seconds.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of interim superintendent. Because I continue to struggle with speaking, I'm gonna ask that possibly Jill or Wendy take the lead on introducing this.
Okay. The board will discuss and take action on the appointment of the interim superintendent to manage the district during the third-party evaluation of Superintendent Glass. The board met in executive session prior to our regular business meeting. We've had some discussion regarding the interim superintendent. We're basically just looking for someone to come in and handle the day-to-day operations. That they come in and they'll basically be in charge of personnel, of managing the schools, of managing the day-to-day operations, anything that is under time constrictions. They'll work with finance. They're not here to make changes. They're not here to undo anything that Ms. Glass has done. It is really just an interim person to come in and kind of take the helm for a little while the evaluator does her job. So that's where we're at, and we do have a candidate. Does anyone have any questions before we nominate our candidate? Okay, hearing no questions, I move that the board contract with Dr. Patrick Sweeney as the interim superintendent with a start date of January 19th, with a possibility of an end date of June 30th.
Second?
I have a motion and a second from Wendy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so then we have, information discussion items. This is for us to discuss the scheduling of a follow-up special meeting to identify the scope of work for the interim superintendent. We can also, include in that meeting agenda, additional information and direction for the third-party evaluator. Does, I assume that the board is like-minded with me that we want to have this follow-up special meeting as soon as possible so that we can identify what we'd like the superintendent to address.
Yes.
What is the board's availability for either a Thursday or Friday afternoon meeting this week?
Thursday sounds good?
Dana said Thursday sounds good.
Are we gonna do we need to do a working session and a business session then? The working session for the discussion, or can we do all the discussion in a business meeting?
We should be able to do the discussion just as a regular business meeting. I will be working with Krista and likely interim superintendent Sweeney tomorrow and Thursday, because we are supposed to have a working session on Wednesday next week as a regularly scheduled meeting. I would still like us to plan to do that and cover some of the items that we discussed in the last regular board meeting that we wanted to be included as part of that working session. So the special meeting this week will really just be targeted at providing a little more detailed information to interim superintendent Sweeney regarding the priorities that we have for him as he comes in to assist us during this time.
Krista wanted to let us know that she's available Friday, in person.
So Krista would be available Friday in person. Dana, would you be available Friday in person? Judy?
Friday, we're talking about the 27th, 28th?
21st.
No, the 21st.
Oh,
So the 20th or 21st. I mean, I think this works if Krista, she can still do it online.
Okay, but are you available on the 20th then?
Yeah, I could be available on the 20th. The only thing I have on that day would be 7:30 at St. Bernard's, that choir.
Okay, so if we did like another 4 o'clock, okay, let's do it. Nadia, I think the consensus, while we would love to have Krista here in person, the consensus is it's easier for the board on Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Okay, and that works for me as well. This isn't an item that we need to officially take action on beyond that I'll direct Krista to please work with me so that we can get an agenda drafted so that we can properly notice a meeting to occur on Thursday, January 20th at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay, those were all the items on the meeting agenda. I'm not going to read the future actions piece and the dates of upcoming meetings. We covered those frequently and they are on the meeting agenda. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that we adjourn.
Second?
That was Wendy, I think, who seconded.
It was.
For Krista.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
How we set it up?
We'll see if I need to call Krista again.